All right, now that you have AMTS Nutrition downloaded onto your computer and you're ready to work in it, it's very similar to what you had seen in AMTS.professional. We have the home, farm, barns, groups, feeds, mixes, and recipes. Just along the left-hand side, there's a few new things that you'll see, tools, and we'll go over that soon. And if you had any templates, if you had environmental templates or any activity templates, a ration output template, or a mixed output template, they should be in these folders for you to be able to use. They should have come over from Pro. If they didn't, let us know so we can help you out. So the first thing I'm going to do here is go to Manage Farm. I'm going to open a farm. I already have a few farms that I converted from nutrition that I've been working in. So I'm going to say Open Farm, and it goes to my nutrition folder. I'm going to work on this new production test farm. It's going to load my farm. This is the name. This is the mill it's associated with. We didn't really give it an address. This is just for funsies, for demonstration purposes. I'll change my net milk price. I don't have one in here. And my animal value, that animal value is still going to give you an average daily gain. The price per average daily gain, that would be for non-lactating animals. So if you have a springing heifer and she's 1,200 pounds and you sell her for $1,200, it would be about $1. Prices are pretty high right now. I'm going to give it $2.10. At the bottom is notes. This is just like in Pro, where if you have notes to jog your memory, or if you need someone else who's going to be receiving the file, you need them to know what's happening at the farm, or you have any updates, you would put that in there. Nowhere can this note section be printed out. So that's just for you to jog your memory. The next screen down is barns and groups. So we changed this a little from Pro. We put the two sections on one screen because we got a lot of feedback, and it makes a lot of sense that the different barns are going to have different activity levels. So we took that out and we added it to the group. So you are able to look at the barn and the group on the same screen and make edit, addition, or you can delete things. So I have barn 1 already here. To create a new barn, I would click on create a new barn. That is just like it was in the old program. If you have an environmental template, you would pull it down. I don't have any, so I'm going to just switch these numbers really quick by hand. We're in a pretty cold climate, so our numbers are going to be pretty low. And as you're going through, remember these temperatures are going to be in the barn, what the animals are experiencing. So even if it's very hot outside or very cold outside, it's a matter of what the animals are experiencing. Night temperature is less than 60 degrees. I'm going to turn that on. The section to the right is for groups. This is where you would have your pens. I have one group in this barn. It's my lactating dairy cows. We will assume they get 1 TMR ration. You can put an activity template in if you have one. If you don't, that's okay. You can go down through and you can change these numbers by what they are. These are going to be specific to this group, this lactating dairy cow group that we have. Any numbers that are in red are going to be non-editable. You can't just go in here and change the lactation number. That's a calculated number. Days since calving, age in months, age at first calving. In my group, they give just a little more milk, and their milk fat is pretty decent. Body condition score is their back fat, where they are today, where you want them to be tomorrow. You would only change this if you were trying to get some back fat off of an animal, or if you were trying to gain some weight quickly. Days to reach target body condition score is going to be set at 100. Anything more than 100, it doesn't make any difference. We're just assuming this is how long she's going to be fed this diet in this group. Breed type can be dairy, beef, or beef. We have lots and lots of primary breeds, just like we had before. I think there's a couple of new ones that have been added since Dot Pro. And the scale weight, she either walks across the scale or she does not. The default is now on false, I believe, because most of the time we're not walking them over scale. The average daily gain calculator is now in line where it had been at the top in Dot Pro. So now you can, as you're going through, you can click on the calculator, see where they are, see how much they should be growing, and if you're in this range. So if you don't know weight of that breeding to first calving, this is a back calculation. So if you know how much they are when they're born and you know how much they should be at 60 months of age, then you can do these calculations on a chart. This is printable and you can change the percentage of error. As we're going down through, the mean full body weight of this group is put in at 1,550 pounds. I really doubt that's how much that this group would be, even if it's pretend, because that was the average weight of a Holstein cow probably about 10 or 15 years ago. So it really is important that you measure, that you know what their mean full body weight is, because that's driving every number, every equation in the entire program. When you go to the doctor, the first thing they do is weigh you so that they can appropriately give you antibiotics or any sort of medication that you may need. And that we're trying to do the same thing with these girls. Going down through the activity calculator here, you can change this. We'll put in at a freestyle. We'll say that there's 125 stalls and there's 220 animals. They milk 3 times a day. We're going to say maybe an hour. That's going to change their flat distance walk in a pretty big way, because it almost triples the default amount that they're walking. I'm going to apply this, and it puts in these numbers. If you have mud depth, that mud depth means, is it above their hoof? Then you would start putting mud depth in. This really is a beef equation for non-lactating animals. That mud depth is going to have a bigger effect on their energy requirements because they behave a little differently. The number of times milking times per hours, all these things here at the bottom that you see below flat distance, below mud depth, these things are all going to be time management numbers. So what you see at the top is going to be fed into the model, and the things at the bottom, those are going to be fed, those are going to feed into time management issues. So if you're troubleshooting and you have a herd that you just can't get milk out of them because of dry matter intake or whatever, that's where you'll be using these bottom numbers. These are the numbers that are coming out of Chazy, New York, on the Minor Institute with Dr. Rick Grant and his crew. So they developed these numbers. They did a whole bunch of work to show how much milk you could be losing to time management, because sometimes we're really putting a lot of pressure on these animals to produce a lot of milk, but we're really not giving them enough time to do it. At the top, you can create more groups. You can rename the groups. You can copy them, cut, just like you could before. You can reorder groups. If I had a lot of groups, I'd be able to go in here and put them in whatever order I want. I'm going to create one more group just so we can get an idea of what's going on. So I click create group. I'm going to call this low cows. Maybe I should call them mature, but I'll call them low cows, and we're going to say, no, they're not scale weight. And we have to go through and we would have to double check these numbers quickly. I'm going to say that they're low, they're making about 70 pounds, and maybe they're pretty stale, so we want to change days since calving and really make this group accurate. So I make them there. They are body weight. Activity calculator will say freestyle. The next screen is feed. So we set up our barn and our or lot. Then we set up a couple groups in there, and we're going to go to feed. We need to add some feeds to this farm. This is a little different than it had been in the past. To import feeds, you're going to click on the top right corner, and you can select from the AMTS feed bank. That's probably the only one you have unless you're with a company. And you can type in corn silage processed, and maybe I have some alfalfa. So I can X that, and I can pull some more things in. Brown, cornmeal, soybean meal. And that's all I'm going to bring in for just this moment. I'm going to say accept additions. These are my feeds that I just accepted. If I don't want to see them like this, I can pull them. I can click on that. I must already have a fat in here. So to see all the specs, they'll be out here to the right. If I have these open, you can say expand all. To edit a feed, you click on the little pencil. You can change the name if it's not locked. You can change specs. You can say update. You can add notes as well. I didn't change anything. I'm not going to update this one yet. The other thing you could do is if you have a different forage that you want to bring in, but it's pretty similar, you could say copy. I'm going to ask, is this a new feed name? Is this a new sample, or is this just a new feed? So if it's a new sample, that means you want to update the last one. So you could change the name and say, yeah, that's a new sample, or that's a new feed, and it will copy it. If you say that's a new sample, you say copy, and then, yeah, that's a new sample. You can change the name. And then say it's a new sample. And it's going to update that old sample everywhere you have it in the program. If you have that being fed to 4 different groups, it'll change the name, and it's going to put the specs that you just edited with that new updated sample everywhere that you had that feed. So that's relatively new, and that is a pretty nice feature that we added. You can edit things right here as they're in line, and there's lots of things that you can edit there for pricing, or if you say edit with the little pencil, you can edit everything. Again, as long as it's not a locked feed or a commercial feed, rather. So I have these feeds that I added to my farm, and now I'm going to make some recipes. I already have one recipe that I was working on. Didn't do much with it, but I have it. I'm going to select it. It is nothing because I didn't do anything to it yet. I was just starting it. So I want to bring some feeds into this recipe. And the way I do that, again, I'm going to click on Import Feeds. These are all the feeds I have available. I could say transfer all from farm. If I'd open all those, I'd be able to see what's coming in. I could bring in more AMTS feeds. I have my own feed bank that I called My Feed, but I'm going to transfer everything from the farm feed bank into the farm. Accept additions. So I can come in here and I can be like, oh no, I really didn't want that fat. And I can click that and I can exit out. Now, when you convert a farm, I'm assuming you're going to have these sorts of things already populated. I'm going to populate them quickly. So I just populated this diet with some false numbers just to get going. My outputs are going to be here in the right like they had been in the past. I can still click and move things around like I had in the past, but your display might look a little different than it had in AMTS.pro. So what you're going to want to do is go right up here to display options, and you can go down through and you can either hide or show things that are important to you. What do you like to see? OPT-FCS is optimized feed constraint. If you're going to be optimizing, you're probably going to want to have those on, whether dry matter, as fed, or both. Snapshots, those in the past have been hidden by default, and they are again. But if you like to see snapshots and you like to see where you start your diets from, you'll want to turn it on. Dry matter I have as shown, and as fed I have as shown. You can show % dry matter and % as fed. You can't put inclusion rates in by those though. It doesn't work quite that way. It's just a read only. You can also group your feeds. As you're bringing your feeds in, you can say, oh, I want them in a descending order, or you can say by feed type, because a lot of people really have an order that they like to look at things. So grain type forage would probably be the first. So to get that grain type forage, you double click and you can drag it to the top. That'll be the first thing it puts in. The second thing I really like is a hay crop forage. So I'm going to double click on that and bring that up. And maybe I want energy. And protein. So whatever order you want this in, you can put it in that order. Or maybe you don't want it to be in a specific order. Maybe, like I said, you want it to be in one of these orders. So I'm going to say, okay, that makes up what I see on here. And again, on the left-hand side, that is what you're used to seeing. Now, there's not as many tabs as there had been in the past. Those tabs have gone away because there's a report that shows everything on the old tab that you're used to seeing. You can see them in a report. Before we go to any reports or look at any different reports, we want to make sure that we go to report settings and show which ones we want to have on. So maybe you really like the fermentability tab, so we'll turn that on. And I like the diet summary, so I'll turn that on. If you have any custom reports, they will show up in here. I can say okay. And then these are going to be the reports that I see by clicking on the report tab. In the past, we weren't able to print multiple reports for multiple groups, but now we can. You click on reports to the left, If you have many groups, you would be able to select all those groups, which reports you want, and click on Generate. Easy peasy. I'm going to go back into Recipes. Just wanted to show you the tabs. And I like to stay on ration output. You still have the question marks, so you can click on the question marks beside a nutrient to see what feed is contributing to that nutrient. A new feature is ratios. So if you have, I have 2 corn silages in this case, maybe I want them to be 3 to 2. I can click on ratio and go 3. Maybe I want this one at 1. So then if I change this to, it brings that in at 7.3. I can change those ratios and I can take them away if I need to. At the top of the screen, we talked about display options briefly about how to change how your feeds are coming in. There's also this customizable area, which shows the bottom part of your ration output screen. So we have 8 things that you can put at the bottom of the screen. If you like all of them, you can drag and drop them over there. You can decide which things you like on that screen. The last setting option you have is your screen split. It can go primarily to the left, primarily to the right, or it can be an equal split in the center. There is no more of dragging screens around and losing them behind things and not being able to see things. So those are your options, and that's how that'll be.